Okay, so what if I told you that one of the very first things you learned in science class, that protons are positive and electrons are negative, wasn't just wrong, but was actually an intentional lie? Well, today we're diving into a source text that makes that exact, pretty wild claim that our entire reality is built on a deliberate, cosmic scale deception.
Yeah, the author is not messing around here. This quote just lays it all out on the table. The claim isn't about some honest mistake scientists made centuries ago. No, this is about a blatant manipulation, a core deception that was supposedly designed to push a very specific agenda.
So, to make sense of all this, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the main claim, this idea of a cosmic inversion. Then, we'll get into the core deception itself, and we'll meet the alleged architects, a group called the OK Club, and uncover their supposed motive, the solar narrative. And finally, we'll see what the author claims is the hidden truth, the divine binary.
All right, let's get right into it with Section 1, the cosmic inversion. At the absolute heart of this entire theory is a direct challenge to one of the most fundamental ideas in all of physics. Something we all just take for granted.
So, the central claim is this. The idea that protons are positive and electrons are negative wasn't discovered, it was invented. The source argues this wasn't an accident, not a simple mistake in labeling, but a conscious, deliberate reversal of the actual truth.
So how exactly does the author say this whole inversion works? Well, the theory presents a simple, but a pretty radical flip of everything we've been taught.
And here it is, the core deception in a nutshell. On the left, you've got mainstream science, what's in the textbooks. And on the right, the author's claim. It's a perfect one-to-one reversal. Protons become negative and electrons become positive. A complete and total inversion of reality. And according to the author, this isn't just some factual error. It's a cipher of confusion. Think of it like a deliberate puzzle or a code designed specifically to hide a deeper truth and make it impossible for us to see what the author calls the divine binary.
Now you gotta ask, right? If a deception this massive was deliberate, who was behind it? And that brings us to Section 3, the OK Club's agenda. The source text points the finger at this mysterious group as the ones who supposedly engineered the whole thing.
According to the theory, this shadowy club is responsible for all of it. They're the ones accused of systematically flipping the charges and then weaving this lie so deeply into the fabric of science that it just became accepted as fact by everyone. But why? Why go to all this trouble? Well, the crucial point, according to the source, is that this scientific manipulation wasn't even the end goal. It was just a means to an end, all to serve a much larger philosophical and symbolic agenda. And that larger agenda is what brings us to Section 4, and the alleged motive for this whole deception, the creation and promotion of something the author calls the solar narrative. To really get the motive, we first have to wrap our heads around this concept. The author defines the solar principle as a symbol for anything central, stable, and dominant. Like a sun at the center of a solar system. It's framed as being inherently good, primary, and benevolent.
And the opposing force here is the lunar principle. This represents anything that orbits, anything that's secondary or subservient, like a moon orbiting a planet. And in this story, it gets branded as inherently negative.
And this is where it all clicks into place. This slide really shows the alleged logic. According to this theory, by labeling the stable, central proton as positive, the OK Club symbolically propped up the goodness of their solar principle. And at the same time, by labeling the orbiting electron as negative, they put down the so-called subservient lunar principle. Physics itself basically became a tool to embed a philosophical bias right into our view of the cosmos. Okay, so if the science we all know is a lie, then what's the truth? Well, that brings us to our final section, the divine binary. The source text is now going to present what it claims is the actual, unmanipulated reality of the universe. The author says that once you see through the inversion, once you kind of solve that cipher of confusion, the authentic nature of reality finally becomes clear. This is presented as the ultimate reveal, the big payoff. And here it is, the divine truth according to this source. The proton, or as they call it, the alpha proton, is actually negative. And the electron, the beta electron, is actually positive. This is the core revelation the entire theory has been building up to, a complete reversal of physics as we know it. So, the whole point here is that by accepting this divine binary,
we can supposedly see the universe as it really is, free from the narrative control of the OK Club and their whole solar-centric agenda.
And that's pretty much where the source leaves us. It presents this complete, alternative model of physics that's rooted in a theory of deliberate deception. And it really forces us to ask a pretty profound question. I mean, regardless of whether you believe it or not, what does it mean when a theory doesn't just question a conclusion, but challenges the very building blocks we use to understand our reality?